So after rough grinding this front strap up underneath the trigger guard and following the contours in all different directions, I'm leveling this down to the level of the front strap with a file so I can begin to checker it. This will eventually be undercut even further after the checkering lays in at full height, and that will give the checkering the appearance of standing proud above the surface of the front strap. This transitioning of the front strap from the new radius that was cut to the underside of the trigger guard also serves to raise the grip, where you can get a little higher purchase on the pistol when you're holding it. It lowers the recoil center of the gun and helps the gun feel like it recoils a little bit less. Not that it does, it just makes it feel like that. So now the lines on the sides of the front strap have been addressed. The curvature of the front is level with no low spots. The high cut is blended into that surface. There's still a few file marks. There's still some little bit of chatter from the machine cut. All these really don't mean anything because by the time this is finished, I'll have gone over it with a file many times. So it's going to have a lot of cleanup as we go. There's no need to do it all right now. Our first step once we start cutting is to put a straight edge on whichever side of the frame you're comfortable working with. This will help you establish lines across the front strap that you can track. So these are your verticals that are actually the hardest of the two directions to cut. I let the file run out at the top, but not so much that it jumps out of the grooves that you're cutting. Key to the process is holding the frame at a level where your arm runs in a straight line with your file. You're not having to turn your shoulders or turn at the elbow. You're running straight, like your elbow is a hinge and your shoulder is a pivot. You don't bend your wrist, you keep it all straight. Once you get these lines established to a depth that you're comfortable to track, then you can remove it from the plate and start working your way around the front strap. And then you can complete the pattern on the verticals. At this point, you're only wanting to cut to 1/3 to 1/2 depth. That's going to allow the file to safely track as long as you can run your arm straight. It's going to allow the file to track straight. You don't have to worry about scuffing or diving your file into the high cut, because you're going to trim that away every couple passes. You're going to remove all those scratches so you can cut cleanly to full depth. Now that I have enough depth that I can confidently track this file, I can take it out of this setup and put it back onto a checkering fixture. As you're running the file and rocking it over towards the edge, you don't want to twist your wrist and make these cuts. You want to try and keep the file as close to a normal flat position as you can. So as you start feeling your file is approaching the depth that you're looking for and you want to move over a notch or over a groove, turn your frame a little bit. That helps you keep your hand more level. You can see this file gets easier to track in these grooves the deeper they get. It has less tendency to jump out. So all you have to do is continue to run your arm straight. Takes multiple passes. Don't be in a hurry. Don't think if you lean on the file you can get this done faster. You can't. Ask me how I know. That might be on one of their timed auctions too. Yeah. They have these timed auctions. They all expire like Sunday at a certain time. So the last 15 minutes of that will probably be pretty hairy.
Yeah, shoot.
So, as you can see, I need another line on this side. As we start to cross these lines, we're using a fence that lets you run the file straight, or forces you to run the file straight, but it's only good for the first row. After this, you have to watch what you're doing. Once we get to this point where we have our horizontals and our verticals all laid out and perfectly square and perpendicular to each other, now is where the rules of checkering apply again. First of all, keep your wrist level to the floor with your forearm. Let the elbow bend and the shoulder pivot. Leave the guide in place so you can use it as a visual guide, and space off 2 lines. You're leaning on the left edge of the file a little heavier than the right. Just let the right side coast in and it'll form its own grooves. And then you can space another 2 lines. Using this guide as a visual, but also tracking your file in those grooves, ensures that you're not going to end up with a bunch of crossed lines that later you're going to have to try and figure out how to fix. Also, trying to bite off too much at one time, if you think you can advance the file by 6 lines or 8 lines, I wouldn't recommend it, because you're giving yourself too little purchase in the grooves that are already established. You need those to guide your file. If you take your time while you're laying out this pattern, you're going to find that it makes the rest of this project a whole lot easier on you. You don't have to cut to a great deal of depth right here. You're cutting to 1/4 to 1/3 depth just so you can track. Once you keep spacing this file, by the time you get to the end of it, the lines that you're cutting on the back edge of the file are going to be down to about 1/3 depth, the same as your front lines, or your vertical lines. That makes this pattern a lot easier to track. So when we get these cut all the way down the frame, we're going to remove this fence, and we're going to bring the lines up a little bit. Those you're actually going to cut from the other side of the frame, because if you're right-handed, you're going to want to work from left to right. That way you can use your eyes on the left edge of your file and have an unobstructed view. If you try and cut right to left, you risk crossing your pattern, and that's a mess that you don't want to clean up. left to right makes this get a little tight. But you've got nice deep lines to guide your file. So you just try and advance one or two at a time. The repetition phase. The repetition phase is that fun part where you do all of these things just the same way another 10 or 12 times. And I can also keep all my lines flowing at the same time to not have to go back and make a big change at the end to correct anything. You don't want to cut into a curve on a short line, you want to do it on a long line so it keeps that gradual curve. So now we can see that this has been cleaned up with a number 4 file. This checkering pattern is actually standing just a little bit taller than the material above it. So now as we run our vertical lines through, they've got some airspace rather than just diving into that curve as they did the first time around. We're going to clean this up every second cut. Every second pass that we make, we're going to clean this up right down to the bottom of our pattern again. As these point up, it gets a little easier to clean these up, and you're going to get a needle file to work a little bit closer, and it'll make this last row of diamonds stand up just as sharply as the ones at the bottom of the pattern. At the finished product, you can see how the diamonds stand proud of the finish, or stand proud of the front strap. They're all pointed. You can feel the grabbiness of the finished diamonds.